My story began 4 years ago. My husband divorced me to marry my own sister. 4 years later, he caught sight of the child standing quietly behind me, and the color drained from his face. The boy was a perfect miniature of him, yet he called my husband's greatest rival, Dad. It all began on a Tuesday. I remember the rain that day, one of those relentless, bone-deep drizzles that never seemed to stop. I was in the kitchen, testing a new stew recipe for Mitchell. His stomach had been unsettled, and I had spent weeks researching gentle, nourishing meals. In my foolish hope, I thought that if I cared for him perfectly, if I became the perfect wife, then maybe, just maybe, he would finally see me. He came home early that afternoon. No briefcase in hand, just a crisp manila envelope. He didn't even remove his rain-soaked coat. He simply stood in the kitchen doorway, staring at me as though I were a stranger. Or worse, an employee he was about to dismiss. "Audrey?" he said, his voice flat and stripped of emotion. He slid the envelope across the granite counter. It stopped beside the carrots I had been chopping. "Let's get a divorce." The knife slipped from my hand, clattering against the counter. For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe. It felt as though the air had been punched from my lungs. "What? Mitchell, what are you talking about?" He sighed, the sound laced with impatience. "Sign this agreement. Our lawyer drafted it. It's generous. I'll give you an extra $20 million on top of what the original contract stipulates." The contract? Of course. How could I forget? Our marriage had never been a love story. It was a business arrangement, a 3-year deal set to expire in just 1 month. I had naively hoped he'd let the deadline fade into memory, that the life we had built, or rather, the life I had built for him, might actually matter. "If you don't agree now," he continued, his tone as cold as the rain outside, "the contract will expire automatically in a month anyway. But then, you won't get a dime of the extra $20 million. Think of it as a severance package." My hands were trembling. I looked at the well-dressed, handsome man I had loved for 7 years, and a wave of desperation nearly knocked me off my feet. I had one final card to play, a secret I had guarded for a week, a fragile spark of joy I had been saving for the perfect moment. "Mitchell," I whispered, my voice breaking, "what if I told you I was pregnant?" Yes, I admit it. I was desperate, willing to use the child to hold him. Mitchell's family had old money, but few heirs. A child, his child, could change everything. For the baby's sake, for his family's legacy, maybe he would abandon this insane idea of divorce. But he didn't even flinch. His eyes, cold steel, locked on mine. Then he delivered the final fatal blow. "I had a vasectomy," he said. Each word fell like a polished stone into a silent pool. "Right after we got married. The child can't be mine." My mouth opened, but no sound came out. A vasectomy? Impossible. Mitchell was the only man I had ever been with. If the child wasn't his, whose was it? The question hung in the air like poison, an accusation I could never escape. In that instant, I understood something devastating. When someone refuses to believe you, no explanation matters. His words had built a wall I could never climb. He turned and walked away, leaving me alone with the smell of rain, the half-chopped carrots, and the divorce papers that felt like a death certificate for the life I thought I had. I sank to the cold kitchen floor, the tile shocking against my skin. The truth was, it had all been doomed from the start. 3 years earlier, the bride meant for Mitchell was not me, it was my sister Blair. She was the brilliant one, the beautiful one, the adored one. But just days before the wedding, she fled the country, chasing an artist she claimed was her true love. To avoid scandal and preserve the massive business deal between our families, my parents offered me as the substitute daughter. Mitchell's family, caring only for appearances, agreed. And me? I had secretly loved Mitchell since I was a teenager. To me, it felt like a dream come true. I said yes. The only unwilling soul in the arrangement was Mitchell. I can't say what other wedding nights are like. Mine began with Mitchell tossing a contract onto the pristine white comforter of our hotel suite, the 3-year marriage contract. He had been clear from the start. When the 3 years were up, no matter what, our marriage would end. I felt lost and aching, but I refused to give up. I convinced myself that if I cared for him enough, if I treated him with unwavering devotion, he would eventually soften toward me. I thought my quiet, steadfast love could outshine Blair's dazzling but fickle brilliance. For 3 years, I was his shadow, his caretaker, his personal assistant. His stomach was fragile, so I studied nutrition and became a master of gentle, soothing dishes. He struggled with headaches and sleepless nights, so I learned acupuncture, carefully pressing needles into his temples while he lay in restless slumber. Looking back, I see how foolish I was. Who truly falls in love with their live-in nanny? I was deluding myself. We weren't loving each other. We were destroying each other. My hand trembled as I reached for the pen, ready at last to sign the papers and end my own misery. Just then, my phone rang. The screen lit up with my mother's face. I swiped to answer. "Hello? Audrey, darling?" My mother's voice was unusually bright, practically bubbling with excitement. "Guess what? Your sister is back. Blair's on the afternoon flight. She'll be here tonight. You and Mitchell must come home for a family dinner." My blood ran cold. Blair. Of course. Why was she back so suddenly? My mother sighed dramatically into the phone. "Oh, I always knew that artist fellow was no good. But your sister is so stubborn. After they married, his true colors came out. He cheated, even while Blair was pregnant. It ended in a miscarriage." My heart lurched, twisting with an unexpected pang of sympathy for my sister despite everything. "She's finally come to her senses and left him," my mother continued, her voice bright again. "That's good. Now listen, don't bring up the past when you see her. Don't upset her." Her words kept flowing, but I had stopped listening. In that moment, everything clicked into place. The puzzle I hadn't even known I was piecing together revealed its cruel picture. The sudden divorce, the generous offer, the urgency. It wasn't about the contract ending, it was about Blair. She was back. The leading lady had returned, and suddenly I felt like a character in a novel I already knew by heart. Blair was the heroine. I was only the stand-in, the placeholder. My role was to keep her seat warm, tend to her man, and then bow out gracefully when she reappeared. I could even see the ending. Blair, unable to bear children after her tragedy, would adopt my baby. And I would watch from the shadows as they built the perfect family, living happily ever after. A wave of nausea hit me. Was I losing my mind? Yet within that strange, surreal clarity, something inside me snapped. 7 years of love for Mitchell curdled into something cold and hard. I set the pen down. Why should I step aside? Why should I sign away my life because Blair decided to come home? Why should they stage their happy ending on the ashes of what was left of me? No. I refused to be the tragic, forgotten supporting character any longer. If they wanted a villain, then fine. I would be the best damn villain they'd ever seen. Before this divorce was finished, I would make them uncomfortable in ways they couldn't ignore. I hailed a cab to my parents' house, my heart hammering with a strange, terrifying new energy. I arrived just as Mitchell's car rolled up. He and Blair stepped out together. She looked more worn than I remembered. The bright spark in her eyes had dulled, but she was still Blair, the center of gravity in every room. My parents poured out onto the porch, fussing over her, faces full of concern. It had been raining, yet Blair was perfectly dry. The sleeve of Mitchell's expensive suit, however, was soaked. I could picture it. Him holding the umbrella over her, letting the rain drench him while I always followed in his wake. I swallowed the familiar sting and replaced it with steel. I went straight up to him and pasted on a worried expression. "Honey?" I cooed, clinging to his arm affectionately. "How did your clothes get so wet?" Blair's gaze flicked to us, eyes wide and distant. Mitchell tried to pull his arm free, but I held on, pressing myself close. "Your clothes are all wet. You'll catch a cold. You're the backbone of the company. You can't get sick. Let's go upstairs and get you changed." I could see the vein twitching at his temple, the panic behind his smile as he fought to stay composed. But with family watching, he had to keep up appearances. He let me lead him upstairs. The second we were inside my old childhood room, he shoved me away. "Stop clinging to me," he hissed. I smiled, sweet and deliberate. "You're my husband. Why can't I hang on to your arm?" He inhaled sharply, trying to rein in his temper. "Did you sign the divorce agreement?" "No," I said, my smile widening. "I'm pregnant, remember? And I was thinking, you had a vasectomy? Are you sure the doctor didn't scam you? You're the only man I've been with for these 3 years. Don't try to weasel out of it." He stared at me, his face a mask of livid disbelief. "Audrey, what happened to you?" For 3 years I'd been the perfect docile wife, gentle, considerate, always attentive. He had never seen this side of me, the hard, prickly woman who could look him dead in the eye and challenge him. The gentle Audrey had been a costume, a role I wore in hopes of earning a scrap of affection. The real me, the woman I'd buried, was someone who never let things go. If I couldn't make him love me, then I would make sure he paid. I folded my arms. What's wrong with me? At least I'm better than someone who doesn't even recognize his own child. He stood there, so furious he couldn't even answer. Downstairs, I resumed the act. I sat beside Mitchell, playing cute and dependent. "Honey, I want some of that fish, but it's too far. Can you get it for me?" A moment later. "Honey, my water is empty. Get me some more, please." I kept bossing him, coercing him into the role of doting husband. I watched Mitchell and Blair grow increasingly unsettled. Maybe Blair was finally seeing that the man who used to trail after her like a puppy was, on paper at least, someone else's husband. Halfway through dinner, Blair excused herself, claiming fatigue, and went upstairs. Mitchell, unable to bear it, slipped away to the bathroom. The moment he left, my mother leaned in, her voice a sharp whisper. "Audrey, your sister just went through a breakup. Acting like that with Mitchell might upset her." I nearly laughed. This family had always orbited Blair. When she fled, they installed me in her place without once asking if I wanted it. Now that she had returned, she consumed all their concern. They saw nothing wrong with my husband fawning over my sister. In their world, Blair was the protagonist. I was merely background scenery. No one cared about me. I should have been used to it by now. I lifted my head, masking the sadness in my eyes. I put on a pitiful expression. "Mom, Dad, I'm pregnant. That's why I need Mitchell to take care of me." Before I could finish, the sharp crash of breaking glass cut through the room. I looked up to see Blair on the stairs, her hands empty, her face frozen in shock. At that exact moment, Mitchell emerged from the bathroom. He didn't say a word. He simply grabbed my hand and hauled me out of the house, away from the shards of glass, away from my sister's shattered expression. Back at our sterile, silent home, Mitchell glared at me, fury burning in his eyes. I only shrugged, a strange satisfaction rising inside me. "I really am pregnant. Isn't that worth mentioning?" Ignoring his murderous stare, I slipped into the bathroom. Staring at my reflection, recalling Blair's shock and Mitchell's rage, I smiled. Maybe I did have a talent for playing the villain after all. The next morning, I didn't get out of bed until sunlight streamed across the sheets. It was already past 8. When I finally walked into the living room, Mitchell sat rigid on the sofa, fully dressed for work, his face like thunder. He was a creature of ritual. His mornings ran like clockwork. Normally, his breakfast and his absurdly precise coffee were waiting for him by 7 on the dot. But today, I had no interest in catering to him. Sleeping in felt glorious. "I'm hungry," I announced lightly. Mitchell said nothing, but his stomach betrayed him with an audible growl. "I'll order some takeout," I said cheerfully, pulling out my phone. He looked at me as if I'd grown horns. Before the delivery driver even arrived, he slammed the front door and stormed out. Good thing I hadn't ordered for him. That afternoon, as I lay in a spa treatment I'd booked with his money, my phone rang. His assistant's frantic voice spilled through the line. "Audrey, the cafeteria food doesn't suit Mr. Mitchell's tastes. He hasn't eaten all day." Oh, right. I'd always packed his lunch. Over the years, I'd spoiled him so thoroughly with my cooking that now he could hardly stomach anything else. "Don't worry," I said calmly. "When he's hungry enough, he'll eat." Then I hung up and sank back into the massage. That evening, my phone buzzed with a message. Blair had sent me a photo. In it, a man with a sharp profile and high-bridged nose sat before a steaming pot of fiery hot pot. Mitchell. A second later, she retracted the picture, replacing it with a text. "Sorry, wrong send." I ignored her. Blair had always gotten whatever she wanted with the flick of a finger. Now she was stooping to childish games. I wasn't sad. In fact, I was thrilled. Mitchell's stomach was fragile. Skipping breakfast, skipping lunch, then downing a bubbling hot pot for dinner was practically a death sentence. He didn't even like spicy food, but Blair adored it. And him forcing himself to please her? That would come at a cost. I slept like a stone, calm and blissfully peaceful. When I woke, my phone was a buzzing mess, dozens of missed calls and frantic messages from Mitchell's assistant. The last one was blunt and cold. "Audrey, Mitchell's been hospitalized." I rose slowly, puttered in the kitchen, and made myself a bowl of soothing rice porridge. After I ate, I poured the leftovers into a thermos, drove to the hospital, and walked into the VIP ward. He was sitting up in bed, pale as paper, eyes fixed toward the door as if waiting. When he recognized me, his face soured and he turned away. I entered. "Audrey's here," his assistant said, taking the thermos from my hands with practiced efficiency. "Mitchell was so eager to see you. He had been looking forward to a visitor, but clearly not me." "This porridge smells so good. Mitchell's so lucky," the assistant added, unscrewing the lid. I gave a faint smile. "They're just the leftovers from my breakfast. I didn't want to waste them, so I brought them for Mitchell." The assistant froze mid-sentence. Mitchell's face shifted from pale to a sick, livid green. I watched him, delighted by the way displeasure tightened his features. His discomfort settled inside me like a warm, small triumph. Without another word, I turned and walked out. In the hallway, someone was leaning against the wall by the door. Tall, handsome, his features could have rivaled Mitchell's. I knew him immediately. Sterling, Mitchell's archenemy. Polished and refined in appearance, with a reputation that was anything but honorable. After I married Mitchell, Sterling had tried to flirt with me a few times. I'd always shrugged it off as one of his cruel games to needle Mitchell. "Eavesdropping?" I said, staring at him. He pushed off the wall with a lazy smile. "How is it eavesdropping when I'm listening out in the open? Audrey, making that man so mad. It feels good, huh?" I looked at him flatly. "Stop calling me Audrey like you know me. It's disgusting. Get lost." His grin didn't break, but there was a strange, almost tender light in his eyes. "There's the fire. That's the you I remember." I found his comment baffling. Maybe he was trying to be clever. I stepped on his expensive leather shoe, grinding my heel in slowly. He yelped. I left him there and walked away, a small, satisfied smile on my lips. I was certain I would divorce Mitchell, but I dragged it out, not only to irritate him and Blair, but because of the child. For days I wavered, the thought of raising a baby alone pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. At last, I made up my mind. I booked an appointment at a clinic and went through a battery of tests. The doctor, a kind-faced woman with graying hair, studied my report with a furrowed brow. Audrey, given your condition, you can't have an abortion. I stared at her, stunned. What? Why? If you insist, she said gently, it could be life-threatening. I left her office in a daze, as if I were trapped in that strange recurring dream where my life felt scripted, like a story I was merely reading instead of living. In the book, the doctor had told the heroine the same thing: no abortion, no escape. I had been hesitant already, but now the doctor's warning made the decision for me. This was my child. My blood. I would keep this baby. And unlike in the book, I would not hand my child over to Mitchell and Blair. I would raise this baby myself. The moment I stepped outside the office, I saw him again. Sterling. He leaned casually against the wall opposite, as though he had been waiting all along. His eyes flicked to the obstetrician's sign, then back to me. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face. Audrey, you're pregnant. Why didn't you tell me? I could have come with you. His tone dripped with a dramatic sincerity that was almost laughable, yet carried an undertone I couldn't decipher. I didn't bother trying. I simply ground the heel of my shoe into his other foot. His handsome face twisted in pain as he yelped, and I walked away, satisfied. But perhaps my small triumph turned into misfortune. Perhaps gloating over Sterling's suffering made me careless, because as I descended the clinic steps, I missed the last one. My ankle twisted and I pitched forward. Instinctively, I cradled my belly with both arms. The world tilted, blurred. Then a pair of strong arms caught me before I hit the ground. Doctor, come quickly. The voice was Sterling's, but it was thick with something startling. Panic, urgency, even fear. Genuine fear. Darkness swallowed me soon after. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was him. Sterling sat hunched on a low stool beside the bed, his long legs folded uncomfortably. The moment he realized I was awake, he narrowed his eyes at me. Awake? Sterling mocked mercilessly. Audrey? Do you have an underdeveloped cerebellum or something? Can't even walk without falling? I almost convinced myself the anxious man who had called for the doctor earlier had been nothing but a figment of my imagination. But then, just as quickly, his tone shifted. His voice softened, almost tender. Hey, your face looks awful. Are you hurt? Let me blow on it for you. Before I could react, a figure stepped between us. Mitchell. His hand clamped around Sterling's wrist, his expression carved from rage. This is my wife, he said coldly, his voice low and dangerous, as though he could crush Sterling with sheer force of will. Sterling only laughed, slipping free. Oh, so Audrey has a husband. I thought she came for a checkup alone because her hubby was dead. Get lost, Mitchell ground out through clenched teeth. Sterling smirked. Is that all you can say? Are you a broken record? He needled Mitchell, savoring the reaction until finally, lazily, arrogantly, he sauntered away. My mood lifted. Sterling was irritating, yes, but there was something almost cute about the way he could rile Mitchell so easily. My ex-husband turned his glare on me, his face dark with displeasure. Only then did I realize I was smiling. Sterling wants everything of mine, Mitchell snapped, his pride bleeding into every word. He's only being nice to you because you're my wife. Don't flatter yourself. And then, like a spark catching flame, a wickedly brilliant idea lit up my mind, the perfect way to strike at him where it hurt most. I dropped my gaze, letting my voice tremble with false emotion. "What should I do?" I whispered. I think I've fallen for Sterling." Then I looked up at him, eyes wide and shimmering. "Mitchell, I'll sign the divorce papers as soon as I get back." Sure enough, his face drained of color, ash pale with shock. Back home, I tore the place apart, searching every corner for the divorce papers. Nothing. Finally, I called him. "Where are the divorce papers?" There was a long silence on the other end before he finally replied, his voice taut. "I don't know." He was lying. After 3 years with him, I knew him too well. The man who had once been so desperate for me to sign those papers was now deliberately hiding them so I couldn't. His pride outweighed his so-called love for Blair. For the sake of his ego, he refused to divorce me, just to stop me from ever being with his rival. But I didn't mind. I knew he wouldn't hold out forever. In the days that followed, I lived as if a weight had lifted. I ate well, I slept soundly, and I began quietly sketching a future for myself. I pictured a little shop in a small, quiet town, a simple life with my baby. For the first time in years, the thought filled me with peace. Then the call came from my mother, summoning me home. When I arrived, they were waiting. My mother, my father, and Blair, sitting stiffly in the living room like a tribunal. The air was heavy with judgment. The moment she saw me, my mother hurried over, clutching my hand with an expression of sorrow. "Audrey, I know you haven't been happy these years with Mitchell. He treats you poorly, like a maid." I almost laughed. So she knew. She had always known. I used to believe she simply didn't notice. But I remembered too well. When Blair so much as bruised her arm, they rushed her to the hospital. Yet when I burned with fever through the night, no one came to check on me. The truth was worse than ignorance. She knew, and she didn't care. Blair was her treasure. I was her burden. "Audrey?" she continued, her voice dripping with counterfeit sympathy. "Maybe you should get a divorce." If she was suggesting divorce, it wasn't for my happiness. It had to serve another purpose. I glanced at Blair. "Yeah, Audrey, Mitchell never liked you anyway. Why torture each other?" Blair said smoothly, her voice like silk hiding thorns. I looked her straight in the eye. "He likes you. So, you mean we divorce? And you marry him?" Blair said nothing, but her silence screamed her answer. I shifted my gaze to my parents. Their eyes gave them away. They shared the same idea. I felt no shock, no disappointment. Only a cold, final clarity. I rubbed my belly. "If we divorce, what happens to my child?" Blair's composure snapped. "Audrey, stop pretending. The child isn't Mitchell's. He kept quiet only to save your face, so don't push your luck." Her voice was sharp, impatient. She couldn't wait any longer. I took a slow, steady breath. $5 million, I whispered. Blair froze. "What?" "Give me $5 million and I'll divorce Mitchell." My parents had pampered Blair all her life. Money was never an issue for them. And I knew Blair had access to funds of her own, some trust or inheritance I'd never seen. For her, $5 million was pocket change. For me, a soon-to-be single mother carving out a new life, it was everything. Security, a college fund for my child, a chance to breathe. And the idea of Mitchell discovering he'd been bought for $5 million? That thought tasted like revenge. Blair ground her teeth, then nodded. "Fine. Call him over." She made the call. Mitchell arrived almost at once. He must have been waiting nearby. "Mitchell, where's the divorce agreement?" I asked, my voice unnervingly calm. He shot me a look. "You're in such a hurry to be with Sterling?" Yeah, I said, not missing a beat. I can't wait. Even if I could, the baby can't. Let's get this over with. He pressed his lips together, reluctant now that the terms were mine. Mitchell, Blair said, her tone soft but iron firm. Since Audrey insists on a divorce, just go through with it. He phoned his secretary, and before long, a fresh divorce agreement appeared on the table. I signed it quickly, crisp, decisive strokes, then pushed the papers toward him. Mitchell, remember this, I said, meeting his eyes without flinching. I'm the one who doesn't want you anymore. Also, remember to have your lawyer send the breakup fee to my account. I signed my name, stood, and walked away, without a backward glance. Goodbye, Mitchell. Goodbye to my old life. I wandered down the street with no destination. I'd thought I wouldn't feel sorrow, but my chest felt hollow, as if wind were blowing through an empty room. I had already lost faith in Mitchell. Today I learned I'd lost my family too, if I'd ever had one. They had never cared for me. No one loved me. I was, and always would be, an insignificant supporting character. Suddenly, a sleek black Maybach pulled up in front of me. The door swung open, and a long leg stepped out. Of course, it was that refined scoundrel, Sterling. He strolled over and blocked my path. Divorced? He asked, an irritating gleam in his eye. I narrowed my gaze. How did you get the news so quickly? Blair told me, he replied, as if plucking the thought straight from my mind. Then, with overblown theatrics, Audrey, now no one can stop us from being together. You're insane, I muttered, stepping around him. You only want this to spite Mitchell. I'm pregnant. Do you really want to be a stepdad? He rubbed his chin, considering. Mitchell's kid, calling me dad. Just thinking about it feels good. Yes. Without a doubt, the man was insane. I quickened my pace, but he followed, rattling off all the supposed benefits of marrying him. His nonsense left me speechless, yet, annoyingly, it dulled the sting in my heart just a little. So I left. The city I'd lived in for more than 20 years, I abandoned without regret. I packed my life into a handful of boxes and moved to a small town thousands of miles away. New people, new streets, new air. A chance at a clean slate. But the moment I stepped off the plane, there he was. A familiar figure at baggage claim, smiling like he'd been waiting all along. Sterling. What a coincidence, Audrey, he said, his grin infuriatingly charming. You didn't follow me, did you? I asked, snatching up my suitcase. He only laughed. That's exactly what I wanted to ask you. Later, as I slipped the key into the lock of the small house I'd bought online, the door directly opposite creaked open. Sterling's face appeared, feigning exaggerated shock. Audrey, you're living opposite me, and you still claim you're not stalking me? Just admit you're into me. I ignored him, slammed my door shut with a satisfying bang, and let the silence settle. The house was move-in ready, already cleaned and polished. I unpacked lightly, straightened a few things, then sank into my new sofa with a sigh of relief. My phone rang. Mitchell's number flashed on the screen. Without hesitation, I hung up and blocked it. Wrong number. Wrong life. Moments later, another call came in from an unfamiliar number. Audrey, I'm a friend of Mitchell's. He got drunk. Can you come pick him up? Once, I would have rushed to him, no matter how late or how far. But now, we were divorced. His life, his problems, no longer belonged to me. Call his secretary, I said flatly, and hung up. Then I blocked that number too. 2 names on my blacklist already, and this was only the beginning. In the days that followed, Mitchell's people wouldn't stop calling. They said he was in the hospital with a stomachache. They said he had a cold. One even claimed he was crying because he missed me. Utter nonsense. I was the one who had handed him over to Blair. If they weren't happy together, that was their problem, not mine. I suspected the calls were nothing but ploys to stop me from moving on. So I changed my number, deleted everything, and started fresh with new accounts. Finally, silence. Finally, peace. I opened a small flower shop on the main street of my new town. The work was simple, calm. The fragrance of fresh blossoms filled my days, softening the sharp edges of my past. One morning, the little bell above the door chimed. "Welcome," I said, glancing up from a bouquet of lilies, and immediately my eyes rolled. Sterling, flawless suit, gold-rimmed glasses, the picture of elegance. He selected a bouquet of 99 red roses. I rang up the price. He paid, then promptly handed the massive bouquet back to me. I didn't take them. He only smiled, placing them in a tall vase on my counter as though he owned the place. And so it began. He came back every single day, buying flowers, chatting idly, hanging around like he belonged there. At first, I refused his attention outright. Then I simply grew numb to it. Let him waste his time. I no longer cared. One afternoon, I heard the delivery driver shout from the street, "Audrey, your flower shipment's here." I hurried out to help unload the boxes. Then, a sudden screech of tires. My head snapped up. A car was swerving wildly, bearing straight down on me. For one terrifying instant, my mind went blank. I froze, rooted to the spot. Time slowed. The car roared closer, seconds from impact. And then a violent shove knocked me sideways. I hit the ground hard, scraping my palms on the pavement. Pain and sound blurred together in chaos. When I blinked the haze away, I understood. It was Sterling. He had pushed me out of the way. He lay a few feet off, sprawled across the asphalt. His glasses were gone, his hair disheveled, his immaculate suit torn. The man who lived for appearances looked utterly ruined. And yet, amid the fear and confusion, I felt closer to him than ever. "Sterling, get up. Are you hurt?" My voice trembled as I crawled to his side. He tried to smirk, but it twisted into a grimace. "I'm not as clumsy as you. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. A little car can't hurt me." He attempted to sit up, but pain contorted his handsome face. "Okay," he gasped. "I think my leg's broken." I quickly called an ambulance. While we waited, I saw his leg bent at a sickening angle, and panic surged through me until my eyes burned red. "Hey, it's just a small injury. I won't die," he said, forcing a casual tone. Then his expression faltered, confusion creeping in. "Why are you crying?" "Audrey, don't cry. I'm really okay. Look, I can even jump." He tried to rise again. "If you move, I'll cry even harder," I choked out, holding him down. He immediately stilled. At the hospital, the doctor confirmed it. A broken leg. Not life-threatening, but it required surgery and months of recovery. I stayed through the operation, then arranged a private nurse and visited every single day, bringing homemade food. The same man who had once bragged about being indestructible now lay in bed like a fragile invalid. "Audrey, I want some water," he'd whine. "Audrey, my hand hurts. Feed me. Audrey, my shoulders ache. Massage them." I tried to resist, but then he'd fix me with those big, pitiful eyes, his striking face puckered in pain. "My leg hurts," he'd sigh dramatically. And for whom did I get hurt? I'd relent, sitting by his bed to massage his shoulders. It was during one of those moments that the door burst open. I looked up and froze. Mitchell. His face was dark with fury, lined and weary, so much older than when I'd last seen him. He said nothing, only seized my arm and hauled me toward the door. "Mitchell, take your filthy hands off my girlfriend," Sterling shouted from the bed, straining to sit up. "Let go, or I'll fight you." "Stay in bed," I warned sharply. If you get up, no dinner for you." He immediately flopped back down, pouting like a chastised child. "I'll talk to him for a bit. I'll be right back." Mitchell's scowl deepened, his grip on my arm iron tight as he dragged me into the hallway. "Did you come to give me an invitation to your wedding with Blair?" I asked, wrenching free. "Because I'm not interested in attending my ex's wedding." "Audrey, I didn't marry Blair," he said flatly. "Then what do you want?" He didn't answer. He only stared at me with hollow, haunted eyes. Impatience pricked at me. I turned toward the door. "Fine, I'm going back." "Audrey, let's get back together," Mitchell finally blurted, the words tumbling out as though they had been caged too long. "I've been thinking about you all this time. I dream about you. I realize now. I love you. Losing you made everything clear." His voice hardened, tinged with resentment. "Why didn't you take my calls? Even when my secretary called, you ignored them." For someone as proud as Mitchell, saying this must have cost him dearly. But I wasn't moved. If anything, I found it almost comical. "I'm sorry, Mitchell. I don't love you anymore," I said, my tone steady, unshaken. "I have someone I like now. Please don't bother us." His composure cracked, panic flashing across his face. "Audrey, don't trust Sterling. He doesn't love you. He's just competing with me." A bitter sneer tugged at my lips. "When I was sick and called you from our own bed, you said you had to work overtime. A few days ago, when I nearly got hit by a car, Sterling threw himself in front of me without hesitation. Do you really think you're in any position to say Sterling doesn't love me?" He stood frozen, stunned into silence. "Mitchell, we're divorced. There's no going back. Go find your Blair," I said, and turned to re-enter the room. Behind me, he remained in the hallway, looking like a lost child abandoned by the world. But I felt no pity. Everyone has to face the consequences of their choices. He was a grown man. No one waits forever. Once you miss your chance, it's gone. Back in the room, Sterling's booming, theatrical voice greeted me. "Audrey, my leg hurts. Come kiss it. A kiss will make it better." I marched straight to his bedside and twisted his ear. "Ouch!" he yelped. "I meant my cheek, not my lips. Not in front of everyone." A week later, Sterling was discharged. I hired a nurse to care for him, though I often visited myself. According to the doctor, 3 months should have been enough for him to walk without issue. But Sterling's recovery dragged on strangely. He'd whine, wince, and limp, as though even brushing the floor with his foot was unbearable. Something didn't add up. He was lean, toned. Once, by accident, I'd caught sight of his 8-pack abs. How could a man in such prime condition fail to recover in 3 months? "Audrey, my leg is so sore. Come massage it," he whined one afternoon, slipping into his usual routine. I suddenly pressed a hand to my stomach and let out a sharp gasp. "Oh." Instantly, Sterling shot up from the sofa in a panic, standing solidly on both feet. "Audrey, what's wrong? Stomach ache? I'll take you to the hospital." I fixed him with a glare. Realization dawned on his face. He grinned sheepishly. "Oh man, how did my leg suddenly get better? Is this the power of love?" I pinched his ear hard in reply. Sterling stayed by my side through every checkup and the birth itself. On the day my son arrived, he was both clumsy and astonishingly careful, hovering around the tiny baby as though he were made of glass. "Come on, sweetie," he whispered, tickling the swaddled bundle. "Say, Daddy Dot." I was a new mother, fumbling through sleepless nights. Sterling grew into fatherhood alongside me. Within days, he could change a diaper like an expert. When my son turned 1, his first word was, "Mama." His second was, "Dada." Sterling's joy was so overwhelming he practically floated through the entire day. It was the first time I'd seen anyone so ecstatic to be a father, especially to another man's child. By the time my son turned 2, Sterling and I were officially together. When he turned 3, we married. Our little boy toddled down the aisle as our flower bearer. The wedding was modest, just family and a few friends. As Sterling slipped the ring onto my finger, I turned my head, and for a split second, I caught sight of a familiar figure standing in the shadows at the back. Mitchell. My heart stuttered. But then I exhaled, turned back to my husband and smiled, radiant with happiness. I was lucky. I had found someone who truly loved me. After the ceremony, as we walked into the garden, I spotted 2 figures in the corner. One tall, one small. My heart clenched. Mitchell was crouched, offering a piece of candy to my round-cheeked son. The resemblance was undeniable. My boy was a miniature version of him, the same eyes, the same profile. But my son didn't take the candy. With a clear, piping voice, he said, "Mommy and Daddy Sterling said not to take things from strangers." Mitchell stiffened, his eyes reddening. I took my son's small hand in mine. Sterling walked over, his expression weary as he glanced at Mitchell. "Go play with Daddy for a bit," I told my son gently, passing him to Sterling. I gave Sterling a reassuring look, and he led our little boy away. "Audrey," Mitchell rasped. His voice was rough, weathered, like the man himself. He had aged so much in these 4 years. I had heard the rumors. He never married Blair. She had gone abroad, reunited with her ex, and the two continued their toxic cycle. Mitchell, meanwhile, remained alone. They said he drank heavily, wasted away, and his once bright career plummeted. Perhaps my small act of defiance years ago had rewritten everyone's fate. "That kid," he began, his voice rushing out, "is he—" "It doesn't matter anymore, Mitchell," I said softly but firmly. "Don't come in front of me again, otherwise you'll never find me." And with that, I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard a sound like a broken sob, but I never looked back. I took one step after another, toward my love, toward my son, toward my life. I thought back to the first time I had met Sterling in this life. It was not long after my sham marriage to Mitchell. He had stopped me in a hotel lobby. "Miss," he had said with startling intensity, "didn't we know each other in a past life?" I had thought him absurd then, yet, as the years passed, those words grew sweeter. I often teased him about it, and he would silence me with a kiss, stealing my breath until I forgot how to speak. "Audrey," he would whisper, "we did meet in a past life. You forgot, but it's okay. I remember for both of us. My name is Sterling. Once I had a childhood sweetheart named Audrey. We grew up side by side, from kindergarten to high school. When it came time for college, she enrolled across the country. I tried my hardest, but could only get into a school in her city. Still, I would take the long bus rides, just to see her for an hour. In our junior year, I started a small business. I wanted to save enough to propose right after graduation. Fortune smiled on me. A major company invested in my project, and by graduation, I had enough to buy us a house. I bought the ring. On the day I went to propose, I saw the truck hit her. My world went red. Even as they covered her with a white sheet, I couldn't believe it. They said I was mad, that I couldn't accept her death. But I knew my girl was still out there, waiting for me. I searched every city until one day I could go no further. Exhausted, I lay in the woods, letting the leaves scatter over me. My vision blurred, and in the sunlight I saw her. My girl. She reached out. I smiled. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a luxurious bed. I was me, and yet not me. Born as Sterling, heir to one of the city's great families. I had wealth, power, and an archenemy named Mitchell. My life's purpose seemed to be making his miserable. And still, I carried the nagging sense that I had forgotten something vital. Then, at a dull charity gala, I saw her, a girl gazing softly at Mitchell. My heart lurched. She was inexplicably familiar. My legs moved before I could think. I walked up to her. "Miss," I said, my pulse hammering, "didn't we know each other in a past life?" She glared and fled. But I knew. And as fragments of memory returned piece by piece, joy bloomed in me like fire, filling every corner of my being. I had found my girl.